On the anniversary of Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, a white woman stood up at a meeting in a predominantly white suburb and recalled that decades earlier she had flown to Montgomery, Alabama to participate in a civil rights march. The effort was aimed at getting voting rights for blacks. She said that all these years later she views that participation in an historic cause as one of the highlights of her life. The audience seemed impressed by the woman's tale. From their comments, it would seem that they too had taken the selfless and risky trip to march along with their black brothers and sisters. Of course, very few of them had. Very few Americans had taken an active part in the civil rights movement. But 40 years later, we look back with pride as if we had all done the right thing at the right time. I went to a high school reunion in the 1980s. Someone had put together a slideshow which our class president narrated. As we viewed pictures of long-haired kids protesting against the Vietnam War, he recounted how we had spoken out against what, by the time of the reunion, was recognized as a misguided war. I talked with some friends who had been at the demonstrations that were shown in the photographs. They agreed that very few of our classmates had joined in the protests. No one could remember the class president being there, although he might have been. Sit around the bar with a bunch of veterans as they tell their tales of bravery, and you might get the impression that almost everyone who ever wore a military uniform had charged a hill and rescued his entire unit despite enormous odds. In fact, most of them were file clerks, truck drivers, or otherwise engaged far from any battle. Memory is a poor historian. It does a better job of reflecting what we wish we had done than what we actually did. But that attribute of memory makes it a powerful tool, because once people can see themselves in the role of a hero, they may just start acting in heroic ways. When someone at the Martin Luther King Jr. celebration asked the people in the room to stand and sing "We Shall Overcome," they did, even though most of them had probably passed on the opportunity 40 years earlier. But now, inspired by the inaccurate memory of what they had been, they were able to be the people whom they now realize they should have been. Some of the people in the room who had been active in the civil rights movement may have been tempted to set the record straight and point out that only a minority of whites had helped the black minority. But no one did. They seemed willing to overlook the inaccuracy of self-serving memories. More would be accomplished if the people left the room wanting to live up to their aspirations for themselves than if they left feeling guilty about their inadequate pasts. One of the songs that echoes from the civil rights movement is "Keep Your Eyes on the Prize." The people who were there with Dr. King haven't forgotten that the future is where we will find the prize, and that we must all work together, despite our faults and vanities and frailties, if we are to win that prize.